Welcome. Today, I'm going to be talking about dividing with decimals. Let me explain how to divide a decimal by a whole number using a straightforward method. The key principle is the decimal point in the answer goes directly above the decimal point in the dividend. That's the number being divided. First, we're going to solve 4.28 divided by 2. In step number 1, you're going to set the problem up like you normally would. Then, divide as usual, putting the decimal point in the answer right above where it is in the dividend. Let's break down how we would do this. First, we try to determine how many 2's there are in the number 4. And of course, 2 2's are 4, or 2 times 2 equals 4. I put the 2 up on the answer line, and I put the 4 underneath the existing 4 in the question. And I subtract and get 0. Then I move the decimal place directly above where it is in the question to the answer line. Then I bring down my next 2. Well, I know that 2 times 1 equals 2. I put the 1 on the answer line, the 2 underneath the 2 that was already there. I subtract and get 0. Finally, I take down the 8. I know that 2 times 4 equals 8. So 4 goes on my answer line. I put 8 down in the problem, subtract, and get 0. One key here that is a common mistake that people make is misplacing the decimal point. So always remember, the decimal point in your answer goes directly above the decimal point in the number you're dividing. Now let's look at another example. 6.9 divided by 3. I have to determine how many 3's there are in 6. Well, that's simple. I know that 2 times 3 equals 6. 2 goes on my answer line. I subtract 6 from the 6 in the problem to get 0. My next step is to put the decimal directly above where it is in the question to the answer line. Then I bring down the 9 and determine how many 3's there are in 9. 3 times 3 equals 9, and I will have 0 left over. My answer ends up being 2.3. This next problem is a little more challenging, and why I really want to highlight it. Let me explain how to solve 8.252 divided by 4. I need to first look at how many 4's there are in 8. Well, I know that 4 times 2 will equal 8. I can place that 8 underneath the existing 8 in the problem. When I subtract, I will get 0. The next part is key for placing my decimal correctly. I place it directly above on the answer line from where it is in the question. Then I bring down the 2. Well, I know that there are no 4's in 2, but I do know that 4 times 0 equals 0. And I can use that to make sure that I don't miss this key step. Placing the 0 is very important when you're thinking about place value. So when you have 2 and you subtract the 0, you will still be left with 2. However, then you can bring the 5 down beside it. Then you can continue. 4 times 6 equals 24. When I subtract 24 from 25, I will have 1 left over. Then I bring down the final 2. That will have me determining how many 4's are there in 12. And I know there are 3. 4 times 3 equals 12. And when I subtract 12 from 12, I have 0 left over. The key thing here is to make sure my decimal is placed properly, directly above in the answer from where it is in the question. And I must make sure to put a 0 in the quotient. In this case, it was when 2 divided by 4 would have equaled 0.5. I needed to carry my 2 down again, place the 5 beside it, in order to figure out then how many 4s there were in 25. So be cautious of that moving forward. In this next problem, I'm also going to include the use of front-end estimation before solving to find the exact answer. We can use front-end estimation in multiplication, like I showed you in a previous video, but of course we can also use it in division. Just a reminder, in front-end estimation, I'm only keeping the first number the same. All other numbers will become zeros. Now in this example, with 42.036, I'm only keeping the 4. All other numbers after it become zeros. So I'm left with 40, and that 40 I would divide by 4 to get my estimate of 10. Now that I have my estimate using front-end estimation, I can simply divide and solve to find the exact answer. When I do that, it is key that I remember to place the decimal in the answer directly above from where it is in the question. When I do that, my exact answer will be 10.509. That's very close to what my estimate was. Remember, I estimated using front-end estimation that the answer would be 10. So it is very close to the actual answer of 10.509. In this next problem, you are asked to use compatible numbers to estimate and solve. Remember, compatible numbers are numbers that will be easy to work with. Now my problem here is 52.740 divided by 5. Let's start estimating. I'm going to change 52.740 to a more compatible number that is easier to work with. And in this case, I'm choosing 50. 50 I can easily divide by 5 to get 10. Now I'm going to take you through step by step of how to solve for the exact answer. First, I know that 5 times 1 equals 5. I will put 1 up on my answer line, and I will subtract 5 from the existing 5 in the question to get 0. Then I will bring down the 2 next to the 0. In this case, because 2 is less than 5, I can multiply by 0. So 5 times 0 equals 0. I will put a 0 up on my answer line, and I will put a 0 underneath the 2. And I will be left with 2 when I subtract. The next part is extremely important. I need to place my decimal directly above where it is in the question onto the answer line. After I do that, I can bring down the 7 and place it next to the 2. I know that 5 times 5 equals 25, so I will put a 5 up on my answer line, and I will place 25 underneath the 27. When I subtract, I will be left with 2. Then I can bring down the 4 next to the 2. 5 times 4 is 20, so I will place a 4 on my answer line, and I will place 20 underneath the 24. When I subtract, I will be left with 4. Then I will bring down the 0 and place it next to the 4. I know that 5 times 8 is 40. So I will put an 8 on my answer line, and I will subtract 40 from the 40 that was there to get 0. My answer then becomes 10.548. Now I'm going to move on to the last example. This example, I'm using decimal benchmarks to estimate first. When I'm using decimal benchmarks, I want to round to the nearest whole number in this case. So it's very important that I look at the number in the tenths position. The number in the tenths position is a 3. So I am going to round down to the nearest whole number. In this case, it is 72. If that 3 had have been 5 or greater, I would have rounded the number up to 73. But because it is 4 or below, I round down to 72. In this case, it was a 3, so it was very clear I would be rounding down to 72. 72 divided by 6 equals 12. That is my estimate using decimal benchmarks. Now I'm going to take you through how to solve this problem step by step to find the exact answer. First, I know that 6 times 1 equals 6. 1 will go up on my answer line. I will place a 6 underneath the 7 and subtract. When I do that, I will have 1 left over. Then I bring down the 2 next to the 1. 6 times 2 is 12. 2 will go on my answer line. 12 will be subtracted from the existing 12 there to get 0. The next step is very important. I must place my decimal directly above where it is in the question into the answer. Then I am able to bring down the 3. When I do that, though, I know that 3 is less than 6. However, just remember, if that ever happens, simply multiply by 0. In this case, 6 times 0 is 0. I put a 0 on my answer line and I subtract 0 from 3. I am left with 3. But the next step is to bring down the 4 to have 34. Well, I know that 6 times 5 is 30, so I put a 5 on the answer line. I subtract 30 from 34 and have 4 left over. The next step is to bring down the 2. 6 times 7 is 42. A 7 goes on my answer line, and I subtract 42 from the 42 that was there to get 0. Then my answer is 12.057. That's all for now. Till next time.